Well, before short mid-season break, we were given a much more meaningful and impactful Christmas special than expected. Hey guys, I'm for Girl Meets World, Season 3, Episode 18, Girl Meets a Christmas Maya, and I was definitely interested in this episode, to say the least. I definitely will say that. But I'm not going to lie, you guys, the second half of the season I don't think has been nearly as good as the first half. I think the first half, just every episode was great, and since I think Girl Meets, the Great Lady of New York, they haven't really lived up to that potential since then. I don't think we've had a great episode since Lady of New York. We've had great episodes, but nothing to that level. So I really wasn't expecting much from this episode. But I have to say that this is the perfect example of the way that you tie all of these things that seemed very minimal and seemed like things that we really weren't going to bring up again and tie it into this episode. This, to me, was the perfect mid-season capper, because that is what this is. I mean, yes, we only have 4 episodes left, but this really did feel like a mid-season capper, and they did that really well last year with Girl Meets New Year's. Now, I don't think this episode was on that level, but this episode was still really, really great. I was expecting a very generic, just fun Christmas episode, and what we get here is a much more important episode about connections and friendships and how much these characters really do know each other. And let's just get right into it. We start off with things pretty much the same, with Riley in obviously very excited for Christmas, because why wouldn't she be? But Maya's kind of not really excited, because she is just not, she's never really been into Christmas. She's always found Christmas as a way to spend time with her family, but this is the first time that she actually does get to spend it with her family, that being Katie and Seann. But now she's going to be staying with Riley, which obviously she's very happy about. We definitely do see. You can tell that Riley definitely is feeling the guilt that, she now has a family and she's not staying with Katie and Seann. She does kind of feel like this is kind of her fault. But I did like the way that scene played out and everything, with Riley talking about that. I thought that overall was really well done. But the big thing here, of course, is Secret Santa. That's the thing that Riley's very excited about, which Maya doesn't even want to hear about, because it just annoys her every year. And every year they just do the same thing, and she's really tired of it. And you can just tell that Maya really isn't into Christmas. And we'll get into why later. But I will admit the first 3 or 4 minutes of the episode was a little bit of a rocky start. I wasn't really into it. It wasn't until the next scene that I really think this episode really got going. So we see everyone, including Smackle, who finally is back, which I love that Smackle was back. The group really does feel incomplete without her. I know a lot of people say they don't like Smackle because some people think they turn her into a cartoon or just a boy gawker, but I liked in this episode that Smackle wasn't like that, actually. I don't think there was one instance in this episode where Smackle was flirting with Zay or Lucas or anyone that wasn't Farkle, and that's mainly because Lucas wasn't here, but we've seen her flirt with Zay before, and I like that Smackle wasn't just doing that, because I think this reminds us why Smackle is such a great character, and they did that really well here. But anyway, they each pick Secret Santas, which they're very much over. They're really not into it at all, but Maya gets Smackle, Riley gets Farkle. I love that Riley told them, not to say it, and then Smackle said it anyway, and she's like, that's who I am, because yeah, that's totally who Smackle is. She doesn't really follow rules. She kind of just does her own thing. But Smackle openly states that she got Maya. Maya, I believe, I think Maya got I don't remember who Maya got Riley, if I remember correctly, and then Riley got Farkle, and Zay got Smackle, and then Farkle got Zay, which again I thought was very interesting the way that was done. But we see this scene, and they just don't really know what to do. Then we cut to a scene of Ava being back with Topanga, her trying to understand the gift of the Magi, which she really does not understand why that story is the way it is, which I've always really loved the story of the gift of the Magi. I think it's a very important story, definitely, especially nowadays. I think it's a very important story about giving and about commitment and just about letting things go. If you've ever read that story, that is definitely a great story about how relationships is about sacrifice, because yeah, that is one of the biggest parts of relationships, and I think that story is very important during the Christmas season. If you guys have never read it, there's been different variations of it too, if you guys want to check it out. But I'm not reviewing the gift of the Magi. I'm just saying I think it was a really well done scene with her not really understanding how the gift of Magi is. But either way, we get to Maya, and Maya, again, she's really not feeling this whole Christmas thing. You can definitely tell. And we don't really know why that is. But again, we'll get into that in a little bit. We then get this really good scene with Zay and Farkle. And what I really loved about this episode is that we get to see a lot of characters interact that we really haven't seen interact as much. Zay and Farkle, as we've seen, but it's been more of him and Lucas. Like, we've seen these three work together, but not really Zay and Farkle, and I like seeing that here. With Zay really not knowing what to get Smackle because he's never really interacted with her before. They've never really had any sort of interaction. They never really connected on a deeper level. So he's really confused. And Farkle brings up that he would get her, I believe was called a heron, which essentially, theremin actually, theremin. It's that like creepy, eerie noise that you hear in horror movies, which I thought was very funny to see. But obviously, he tells him not to get that because that's what he would get her. That's not what Zay should get her. Zay should get her something that really does matter. And we hear, we see Smackle, and I love that Smackle knew exactly what it was when Farkle was imitating it. But Smackle goes right to Farkle, asks him who his secret Santa is, and he says that it's Zay, and again, he's very lost. And again, this sets up very well what eventually ends up happening in the second half of the episode. So then we get back to Maya, and we finally find out the real reason why Maya's not really into Christmas and things like that. We do get this ridiculous, kind of silly gag with Ava where she ate too much chocolate or something like that. I thought that was really silly and kind of took away from the serious tone here. That is definitely a problem with this episode. I do think the tone was a little bit messy, but I did think this scene was pretty good with us finding out that basically, most of Christmas, Katie worked. Katie had to work, and they didn't really get to celebrate Christmas all that much, and they didn't even really have Santa. They had an elf. I don't remember what the elf was called, but Katie played this elf, and it always really annoyed Maya, so Riley decides to do a play for Maya to get her to remember how important Christmas is, and this actually does help, because with Katie there, I also love seeing Katie react to Topanga playing her. I thought that was pretty funny to see. But I definitely did like that line. But basically, Maya realizes through this play how important this actually was, because through Katie playing this elf, this was also the Christmas when Maya found out about Riley and got the chance to switch schools, which is probably the best decision that Maya's ever made, because again, we've seen what Maya's life would have been like if she never met Riley, and just seeing that, I think, in Girl Meets World of Terror actually made this so much more impactful. Just seeing how important of a decision that was and how that made Maya who she is today, I thought was a really well done reveal. It was kind of silly hearing Topanga do that accent, which Katie does not have that thick of an accent. I don't really know what Topanga was doing there, but I thought overall it got the point across really well. I definitely really did enjoy that, and I think you could tell this definitely did help Maya in the end, and that's something that I definitely really did enjoy. But then we get to what is by far, I think, the best thing in this entire episode, which is the gift exchange. Everything about the gift exchange here I really did love, because it starts off and all the gifts are wrong. I mean, Maya has a broken clock, Farkle has a menorah, and Smackle has the book to etiquette, and obviously to them these are very insulting gifts, but really when you look behind under the surface and don't just look at it as a broken clock, there's a lot more to it. And what I really love about this scene is that, again, we take characters who don't normally interact and really do show they actually do know each other very well. Starting off with Smackle and Maya, I actually really like this scene because I don't think these two have ever really interacted. The only time they've interacted is when Riley and Maya gave her that makeover. Other than that, have never really seen these two interact. We're so used to seeing her interact with Farkle or Lucas, she doesn't really get to interact with the girls, and I really did like the scene between her and Maya. Specifically Maya, I don't really think she's ever interacted with just Maya before, but the scene where she's telling Maya how the clock may be broken, but she is not broken, and that she's putting the pieces back together, and she's slowly putting herself back together. I just thought it was a really well done scene because, yeah, that's what Maya's always been doing. That's what Maya's always become, and I like the way that Smackle truly did see that in her. I thought that was very well done. And then we get to Zay, where Zay tells Smackle that the reason he got her that book is because he actually crossed off all the things that don't apply to her and wrote down things that he really likes about her, which is her voice. He likes that she's outspoken, and he likes that she is working on herself. And again, that reminds us that Smackle does have autism, as we know, and that's something that the show doesn't talk about a ton. I don't know why, but they just haven't really talked about a lot. But I like that that was brought up here because, yeah, Smackle is trying to work on herself. She does have autism, but that does cause her to be outspoken and things like that, and say things that she probably would rather not have said and said in her head and not actually said out loud. But she is working on herself, and I really did like the way that scene was done. But then we get to Farkle's, which I think is by far the best interaction. Seeing Riley, Farkle obviously is insulted by this because to him, he's asking her, why are you saying this to me? Are you telling me that I shouldn't celebrate Christmas anymore? I don't know what you're saying. But Riley talks about how he shouldn't be afraid of a menorah. He shouldn't even be that upset that he had Jewish relatives. It's a part of him. It is a part of him. It's something that he should celebrate. And he should look at it as he gets to have more celebrations and he gets to open himself up to more culture. And I love the way that Farkle says, I'm going to try to, find out as much about this as I can, because again, this is something that Farkle is still really getting into. He doesn't really know how to react to it, and I like the way he's very unsure about himself in that way. I just thought everything about this scene was just so well done. It really does show how great these characters work together. And when you really strip it down, get away all the laughs, and just focus on the key relationships of these characters, it really does show how great the show is with that. We haven't had a ton of that in the second half of the season. We did in the first half, but the second half of the season, there hasn't been a ton of drama. And I think the way they did that here was just really, really well done. I really did love everything about that scene. Maybe one of my favorite scenes this season, and really to show how great this group really does work together. Even though Lucas wasn't there, I think it just showed that even without Lucas, this group is as strong as ever, and I really thought that was something that they showed very well here. But then we get to the end of the episode, which we see the scene with Augie where he's being Seann and Corey's pretending to be Chet, and we see some of Seann's past, and basically they tell Maya that the reason they're showing this to her is because in order for her to focus on her future, she needs to see where Seann's past came from and show how he became who he is today, and that's how she's going to become who she is today. I thought that was pretty well done, and it made up for Seann not being there. Like, Augie as Seann, I thought was okay. I was a little bit upset that Seann wasn't there. I don't know if Ryder Strong's just really busy, but he's such an essential part of Maya's arc. This would have been the episode to bring him back. Actually, I think Girl Meets Hollywood World would have been the episode to get him back, which a lot of people have been very salty about that episode, and I don't really know why. I don't really think that was a particularly horrible episode. But either way, I did really like the way it ended with Riley letting Maya go with Katie and Seann, because now she has a family. And then, of course, there's that great scene at the end where Augie comes in and basically tells her that Riley just gave the best present of all, because, she sacrificed, once again, showing how important sacrifices are, the one thing that truly, meant something to Maya, and that's to have a family, which Maya really hasn't had up till now. And I thought it was just a really well done scene, showing how important sacrifice is, showing the overall message of this episode, and I just thought it was a very good way to end what was surprisingly a very effective Christmas episode that I really wasn't expecting much from. So overall, guys, I really did love this episode. I thought this was a really well done Christmas episode. Like I said, we got off to a little bit of a rocky start. Not all the humor worked. I thought some of it was a little bit cheesy. But the gift exchange scene, the scenes we're learning about Maya's past, which I was surprised there's still stuff to learn about Maya. I mean, 3 seasons in, we still have stuff to learn. That's something that shows how well done, it comes to, when it comes to things like character development, how good Girl Meets World is with that, and I definitely really did love that. But once again, we have to wait till January for another new episode. But I thought this was a really good episode to leave us off on, especially the fact that Smackle was back, and it's been so long since we've had her. But overall, guys, my review, let me know what you guys saw this episode overall. Definitely looking forward to, I think, 4 episodes left, which I really hope that we do get that season 4. Episodes like this show why we do need season 4, and I'm hoping that episodes like this come out, because I don't think we haven't really had an effective character-driven episode like this in a while, and I'm hoping that the writers do get back into that groove, because I feel like recently they've just been giving us bullshit episodes that just nothing happens and nothing really to talk about. But episodes like this is why I watch the show, and I really hope they continue to give us episodes like this. But that's my review. Hope you enjoy it. We'll see you guys in my next video, which will be, I think, for a movie review. I'm not entirely sure. Actually, no, it will be for the Vampire Diaries, and I'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.